Food and Drink Virtual Festival, working with We will be joined by some of the top chefs around the northern region and some industry professionals doing masterclasses and demos on the 24th and 25th of May. Event Organisation Team. We're also supporting Hospitality Action and supporting them in the work they do.
Hi everyone, and we're back again. This time we're doing something very interesting, been arranged by Martin Hilton. We're doing a beer and food pairing and matching them together. So Martin's got his beers and I've got mine. So I'll bring Martin into the video now. Hi Martin, how things, mate?
Hey, it's good, Sean. I've been holding out for a beer all day, especially in this lovely weather. You know, it's
been killing. It's beer in beer garden weather, really, isn't it, this weekend?
It has. It really has. Long may it continue.
Yeah, definitely. So you've got something very interesting lined up for us tonight, haven't you?
Yeah. Well, it's something a bit different, hopefully. So we've arranged some beers and some food, and hopefully, if the viewers are able to partake and have managed to do any preparation, if you haven't yet, and you can still, folks, grab yourself a bit of cheese if you can. I've got a bit of cheddar here. I've got some chorizo, and I've got some chocolate. Okay, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at a few different styles of beers and how they match in with food. So we're going to be hopefully covering a couple of topics that will be interesting. So first of all, how to taste beer to get the real maximum from it, but also how to match beer and food together. And I kind of picked this up over the years. I'm a beer sommelier, which is a fabulous title for someone who basically went on a few beer courses and drank lots of different styles of beers. But we did have to face a pretty tough test at the end of it. So it is something I'm very proud of. I'm joined by my good lady wife as well, long suffering. She's had to taste a lot of the beers with me. So this is Fiona. Say hello, Fiona.
Hiya.
So that's our plan, Sean, if that works.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go for it. So what sort of beers are we doing today?
So what we've got lined up today is we're gonna start off with this is actually a red ale. This is from Hawk's Head. It's quite a traditional beer. It's a bit like a traditional bitter. So if other folks, if you've not managed to get a red ale, but you've got a bitter or something similar, we're gonna be tasting that one. We've brought a great IPA through. So there's a bit of a story behind this one. Good IPA from Seven Brothers. I saw the Seven Brothers were involved in the festival, so had one of these in the fridge, so quickly brought that through. And then we're going to try something a bit interesting towards the end. We're going to have a look at one of Tiny Rebel's beers. Tiny Rebel are quite famed for doing some quite interesting beers and mixes, and this one is called Stay Puft, and it's a coconut and cream marshmallow porter. So that's our plan, folks. If you've not managed to get those actual beers, don't worry. If you've got anything like an IPA, anything like a bitter or an ale, as Sean has, and anything like a porter or a stout or a Guinness, then the same thing will apply. So that's very much our plan.
Yeah, definitely. So do you want to guide us through the beers and through the food and how we go about it? Yeah.
I will do. So what we'll do, let's have a look. What we'll start with, I'm just thinking what we'll start with. Normally when you're tasting beer, there's sort of different rules, if you like, on which ones to taste first. It's a little bit like wine tasting. So you typically would go from light to dark, but also we need to think about the alcohol value. So we also go from the lower alcohol through to the stronger alcohol. And also, sometimes we talk about something called an IBU. Do you know what IBU is?
It's something to do with how hoppy it
That's it. Perfect. Oh, it's good. I'm impressed. So IBU is the International Bittering Unit. So again, we're mindful of the sort of bittering of the beer. So if we taste something that's really bitter and then go back to something that's lighter, then sometimes our taste buds can be restricted by what we've tasted previously. So I think what we'll start with, let's have a look. That's at 4.2. Where are we? We're at 5 here. We're going to start with Hawkshead Red Ale. So this is the plan. So I'll open this one. So if you guys have got a bitter or a red ale or something similar like that, open that one up now. I'm going to talk us through how to taste beers in a most fulfilling way. What ingredients of beer, folk? Can you remember what the ingredients of beer are?
Hops.
Yeah. Yeah, fantastic. So there's 4 key ingredients that make up beer. Of course, beer's gone through a little bit of an explosion over recent years, and lots of experimentation going with different things being put into brews. But typically, there's 4 key ingredients. So it starts off with malted barley. That gets brewed with water. The water is really important with beer, and the water source will often determine the style of beer and often part of the flavour. So Pilsner that we know of as a lager style, the water there, Czechoslovakian in its origin from the River Pilsen, right the way through to English ales are famous for the Burton ale. And the water that's in Burton, and indeed what a lot of brewers throughout the UK will do is when they're making an English ale, they will first of all do what they call Burtonize the water, which is to make the water from their local source seem very much like and represent the same characteristics as the Burton water. So yeah, we've got malt, we've got water, then we've got hops, and of course, so hops are kind of like the terroir of the beer industry. They're almost like the grapes. So what grapes do to wine is very much what the hops do. And again, hops are grown all over the world. We've got English hops. We've got a lot of hops coming from America, and we've got hops over in New Zealand. So different hops from all over the place will give us different flavors. Obviously, the hops in California get a lot more sun than the hops in Wiltshire. And so we'll have a lot more different characteristics as with the soil. So we've got the hops, but what the hops typically do is they add aroma and they add a bitterness. So what we're getting to here, we've also got the yeast, obviously. The yeast, what does the yeast do for any thoughts?
Give it a bit of fizz.
Yeah, well, it gives it a fizz, creates the alcohol. So what the yeast does is it feeds on all those sugars that are now in our beer and turns some of those sugars into alcohol and also into carbon dioxide, which comes off, and that obviously gives the beer its condition. So we've got those 4 ingredients. Now, the point of saying this, there is a point to it, I promise you guys, is to say that what the brewer is doing with all beers is balancing off constantly. So thinking about those 4 flavors and balancing off, particularly between malt and between hops. And so what we'll experience, even on the 3 beers we've got today, are beers that are more malt forward, so they rely more upon their malt and their hops, and beers that are more hop forward, they rely more upon the hops for the flavor. So let's get to it. This is a red ale. We're going to open it. This is brewed, it's a good northern beer. So for the Northern Virtual Beer and Food Festival, it's very appropriate. It's a northern beer. It's from Hawkshead. So it's from Hawkshead in the Lake District. So if I can pour you some of this, right?
Someone's just said Hawkshead Beer Hall is well worth a visit.
Oh, yeah, it is.
It certainly is. And there's a trick to it, you know. Stay local. So if you're going to go there to the brewery, and particularly to the brewery tap there, which on a Sunday night is fantastic, stay locally in Carmel, and or make sure you're not driving. It really is amazing. It's worth a visit. The beer there is incredibly fresh. Yeah, I've enjoyed a couple of wasted nights there. Right. So what we've got here, we've got this lovely beer. Now, first of all, what we're going to think about when we're tasting beer before we start to gulp it It's how to taste it, how to get the most of it. And we don't want to disappear up our jacksy here and getting all snobby about it, but there is some great stuff we can learn about beer if we just take a bit of time with it. The first of all, we've got it in our glass, and you'll see first of all the glass I'm using here. This is a beer goblet. They're great. So if you've not got glasses like these, please do get some, or use a wine glass. I know that sounds a bit crazy, you know, we get into these paradigms that wine is for wine, but using a glass like this, where we can give the beer a bit of a swirl, we'll get more from the beer because we'll get the aromas from it. So what we're going to do first of all is have a look at the coloration of it. Now, not unsurprisingly, this is a red ale, so it has that red tinge to it. Now, the colour in a beer typically comes from the malt that's been used, and when we see the colour of a beer, we can start to think about the malts that are in there. So if this was a very pale beer, as we'll see in another one of our beers later, it'll give us an idea of what malts are in. Here we can see that the malts are darker. It's giving it that lovely reddish colour. So we can start to anticipate an element of sweetness. Basically with malt, a bit like coffee, is roasted, and it starts off very pale in its colour. So it starts off green indeed as barley, but then as it gets malted and kilned, it goes to a sort of biscuity colour right the way through to the black malts that make up the crystal malts that give us and the chocolate malts that give us stouts and those much darker beers. Now, the darker the malt, typically the sweeter the beer. So here, before we're even tasting it, we're expecting a level of sweetness here, unless it's a very strong alcohol beer where all that sweetness has been converted. So that's the first thing. Second thing we're seeing is that the beer is clear, although it's got that beautiful red coloration to it. It is clear. We can see through it. Okay. It's also what I'm interested in is the head. So I'm giving it a little swirl just to create that head back. It's got quite a tight white head with it. That can start to tell us maybe if the brewer has relied purely upon the malt, or maybe put a little bit of wheat in there. Wheat in a beer, which sometimes the brewers will do, just help give the head in there a little bit more retention. It's a trick of a lot of cask ale producers. Right, come on, I know you're all dying to taste this. I am as well. So, but before we do that, we're going to give it a little swirl, and we're going to give it a little bit of a nose. Okay. And again, what we're trying to look for there is any telltale signs that might tell us about the beer. Anything you pick up?
It's sort of caramelly.
It's caramelly, yeah, spot on. So what we're getting there is notes of, I hate using that word, notes, you know, sound like a posh wine.
You always get that like molasses sort of smell from it.
Exactly. So if we've got a darker beer, so if we're all drinking an English or a red ale or something like that now, we should be smelling the malts more than the hops, because these beers are typically what we call a malt forward beer. So we should be smelling the malts more than the hops. The malt will give us that sweetness, that caramel sort of sweetness, and also, Sean, as you pick out that sort of those sort of aromas you were talking about. So it's starting to tell us straight away, even before we've tasted it, what we might think about what we're going to get. I think we're going to get quite a sweet malt forward beer, not too bitter. Now, little trick for what I want you to do first of all, because I want to introduce to the viewers today. As you taste this, as we're going to taste it, I want you to actually hold your nose. Is that okay? Now, I want you to hold your nose and taste it. Okay, so
Swallow it as well.
Yeah, so and then part way through, I want you to release your fingers off your nose. Let's see if this works. Any sensation there?
It's different. You almost get a hit when you take it off your nose.
Oh, it didn't work. Yeah, it is. Well, what I was using that for, and if any of the viewers manage to do that themselves or to try it sometime, is we taste beer in different ways. So obviously when we're in the pub, we kind of get hold of it and have a good mouthful of it, but we can enjoy it a little bit more because we can get more flavour, a little bit like we do with wine, through using all of our senses when we're tasting it. And it's due to a little scientific or biological element that we taste with, called retronasal olfaction, and that's where we get some of the flavouring from what we smell, so the aromas and the taste buds right the way around our mouth. So when we're tasting the beer, guys, we want to get air in there. We want to get air in there. And the way we do that is we can almost try and breathe. So without choking yourself, okay, when we take a mouthful of beer, first of all, try and mulch it round. Now, with wine, what we tend to do is we suck through the palate and we spray the back of the palate with the wine. With beer, we kind of tend to mulch it, okay?
Like a cow.
A little bit, well, more like a mouthwash. So if you're having a mouthwash, okay, in the morning, and think how you do that, mulch it through. And what that will do is it will spread the palate with the beer, and we'll hopefully get a little bit more flavour. The little fact behind this, guys, remember when you, if you've got a cold or a virus, God, are we allowed to say the word virus these days? Anyway, if you've got a cold or a virus and you're all bummed up, you know, it's really hard to taste anything. You lose your sense of taste, and when you lose the sense of smell. So we want to make the most of it. So we have a good smell of it, good mull to it, spray it around. Also gives us the ability within the mouth to get the mouthfeel from the beer. So what sorts of flavours were you getting, Fo?
So I was getting the carrot, but a bit as if they were like burnt. So that a bit of a sort of bitterness to it.
Yeah.
Like burnt caramel.
I've got almost like a chocolate note coming through on mine.
Have you? Fantastic.
Yeah. I'm using a hobgoblin.
Yeah, and again, malts in there are probably a little bit darker. So again, we'll see when we taste the stout, some really sort of coffee notes you can get through, because the malted barley, as it gets to those final stages of kilning, almost tastes like, you know, if you were to taste one raw, almost tastes like a coffee bean. It's that close. So you're getting some of the definitely on this bit. We're tasting the malt. The bitterness is actually quite low from the hops, isn't it? We're not getting a lot of hop through it. So it's a very much a malt forward beer. Enjoying it, or?
Yeah, I don't mind it. Yeah. I don't know if I could have a pint, but
Okay.
it's not bad.
Okay. So what we'll do now is we'll just start to see how this matches with our various foods.
It's an interesting one just come in there from Martin, saying how interesting it is how similar you could taste between beer and wine is.
Yes, very much. And Mark's a good friend, and nice of him to raise that. And Mark would give us more insight if we were talking about wine, but certainly making the most of the mouth and all that it gives us to taste either wine or beer. It just gets more pleasure from the beer or the wine, really, doesn't it? You know, beer and wine. Sometimes you just want to quaff it back, and that's cool as well. But sometimes just to take a bit of time, have a look at it, taste it, enjoy it, swirl it around, get most from it. So, right, what we've got now, guys, and if you're tasting along at home, as I hope you are, we've got our cheese, we've got our chorizo, and we've got our chocolate. Now, beer and food matching, obviously, it's become very popular over the last few years. Been a bit of a beer renaissance taking place within not just the UK but the world, really. And beer has kind of changed its status a bit. I mean, I think for years, wine has been the go-to beverage for matching with food, and still is fantastic. But Mark, as you know, beer matches better, and we're hoping to prove that today. And what's interesting, I guess, is that over the years, particularly in the UK and even European palates, our food choice has got wider and wider. Our range of dishes has got wider and wider, and our influences from Asia and India, with spice coming through in a lot of our dishes all the time, perhaps plays into the field of beer a little bit more. Wine is fantastic at matching with food, but maybe I would suggest, and Mark's not here to defend himself, but is slightly limited, slightly more limited than beer. The beer range that can attract on food is great. As a daft example there, you're having a curry with a glass of wine. I'm not sure, maybe a Gewürztraminer or something similar, but you would maybe struggle. Whereas obviously with beer range, you know, a really good wheat beer, really good pilsner, really covers those sorts of dishes. So anyway, I get too excited talking about beer, so apologies on that. What we're going to do now is we're going to taste these. We're going to taste the beer. When we're creating a match, and this would apply if we're creating a wine match or a food match, it's just a little trick to doing that. What we'll do first of all is we taste the beer, then we'll taste the element of the food, and then we'll taste the beer again. What this tells us is that obviously the first time we taste the beer, we should be able to taste it. And if we can't taste the beer the first time, it's time to refresh the palate, maybe with some water or something. So taste the beer, then we taste the food. If we can taste the food, then we know that the beer or the wine is not overpowering. If we can't taste that food, we know that that beer and food is being overpowered. We then taste the beer or the wine again afterwards. If we can't taste our beer or wine afterwards, we know that the food is overpowering the beer or wine. Does that make sense? So that's what we're going to do. Generally, guys, there's a number of different strategies when we're matching beer and food together. A whole range of different things we can do. We can either contrast. So a bit like the example we used before, a curry, very spicy, with a wheat beer, which is very cooling, very refreshing of the mouth. That's very much contrasting sort of flavors. Excuse me. Or we can indeed complement. So we might have a fantastic raspberry pavlova, and we might match that with a creek or a raspberry beer, a fruit beer. So the beer is actually almost similar to the food. So we're either contrasting, complementing, or cutting. Another great thing that beer can do is it can cut through flavors and refresh the palate. So again, if we're having really spicy foods or really fatty foods, so fish and chips or a great belly pork or something like that, a really good Pilsner IPA or beer will cut through and cleanse the palate and enable us to enjoy the food again. So we've got different things going on here. So let's try that. So cheese, chorizo, and chocolate. So let's taste our beer though, and then take a bit of cheese. I can taste the cheese, good cheddar, and then we taste our beer again. Okay. Yeah. Good match. What are you thinking?
It works well, that.
Go again, Sean.
It works quite well, that.
Does that work well for you? Yeah, you got a good idea. Yeah. What are you thinking?
I think the cheese overpowered this beer.
Yeah, it does. We've got quite a strong cheddar here. It's really kicked its ass, to be honest. So actually, we might need something a bit more robust than the red ale on this one. What about should we try it with the chorizo? Definitely get the chorizo flavour coming through.
That's a bit better.
It's interesting, you know, because again on paper, you know, I wouldn't have thought that would happen.
No.
And this is the great thing because beers are complex matches of, as we said before, the different hops going in, the different malts. And this is why it's so intriguing, the whole beer and food matching. On paper, you would think that the cheese match there would be better, that the malts are going to sort of contrast against the acidity in the cheese and create that contrast, but it didn't pair up so well. With the chorizo, you would expect that the spiciness in that chorizo would actually overpower the beer, but it's almost like the sweetness in the beer has really matched up and creates all this almost like umami feel at the end. So an interesting match. Let's have a go with the chocolate.
I'm just going to get a bit more beer.
Hey. So I don't know how many people are sort of managing to stick with us on this one. It's not very interesting if you're not able to do it yourself. But we'll try to speed these bits up. But hopefully you're able to, as you managed to prepare some cheese chorizo and chocolate, hopefully you're managing to do a similar thing to us.
What chocolate are you using, Martin?
We've got a dark chocolate.
Yeah, I've gone for that as well.
Have you?
Yeah.
We've got quite a high quality one, so it's a good old Bourneville. So high level of cocoa. I kind of knew what this would do straight away, but your view on that, Poe?
Yeah, the sort of chocolate overpowered the beer, really.
Yeah.
Like I've been left with a film of chocolate, and that's all I can taste.
Yeah. I'm the same, Sean, and that's kind of what I expected, really. We've actually got a chocolate that's probably quite low in sugar, even, but the cocoa is just too strong.
Yeah, I'm on a 70% chocolate.
Although the Hawk's Head Red is a malt forward beer, so in a way, right? Yeah. So I would think that the chocolate, the cocoa in there, it's just too strong. It's just overpowering the malts. The malts just haven't got the body to maintain it. So there we go. So best match.
The chorizo.
Yeah, chorizo, which is quite surprising. So we're going to move on to the second beer now, folks. So either, as we're being very responsible, tip your residual beer away, or, because you're not on camera, get it down your neck nice and quickly. We're just going to rinse our glass as well, drop of water. You can also have a little taste of water just to refresh the palate if you'd like to do that. The second beer we're going to taste here, you're going to like this one, not a lot, is IPA. So IPA is going to give us quite a different style to that we've just tasted, because IPA is very much a hop forward beer. So whereas our last beer was a malt forward beer, so the brewers are pushing the flavour of the malts forward, this is a hop forward beer. And this is indicative of the style. So IPA, Indian Pale Ale, very interesting beer story that you'll probably all be aware of. But IPA was brewed by the English way back when we had a whole empire that we half colonized the world. And IPA was not a beer that was although it was brewed over here, the natives, i.e. us, weren't drinking it. The beers we were all drinking at the time were porters and stouts. We used to send this kind of around the world to the colonies and particularly to the naval forces out in India, hence the name, so the Indian element to it. And because journeys over on the sea at that time would take weeks, to stop the beer from going off, they would really stuff this beer full of hops, because hops have many, many great purposes apart from being sort of obviously intrinsic to beer. They actually are a preservative. And so by putting lots of hops into the beer, it meant that the beer would be preserved on the long journey. So anyway, as a result, this beer style is known for its hoppiness and has also largely been quite at the forefront of the beer renaissance that's taken place over the last sort of 5 to 10 years. And our brothers and cousins over the water in America kind of picked this style up and kind of like they do, God bless them, they kind of supersized it. So taking an IPA, taking it even more hoppy and making it really, really hoppy. And then that kind of led that craft beer revolution that we've all been enjoying over recent years. So very much a hop forward beer. Let's have a look at it. So what did you notice straight off?
It's not paler, but it's also cloudy.
Yeah, good. So two good observations. So it's paler. So again, we can think straight away, we're probably not going to get a sweetness that the malt will give us here. This is even if this was a malt forward beer, because it still could be, because it's a light colour, the malt will have been lightly toasted. So, if it's not a hoppy beer, we're going to get kind of like a bready kind of aroma and taste, rather than that sort of chocolatey malted flavour. Something like a Hell's or even at the low end of the sort of pilsners, I guess. And so we can start to think what sort of flavour we're going to get there. But we've got this haziness in there as well, so it's not clear. So whereas the Hawkshead Red was very, very clear and filtered out, this hasn't been filtered out to the same degree. And this is very much a trend that we're seeing in beer now, because a lot of the very small particles in there are adding flavour to the beer, and so the beer producers, the brewers, are wanting to keep some of that element in, and through dry hopping and not filtering everything out, they're keeping some of that element in it. It's also becoming fashionable because beer on its final stage of clarification uses something called finings. Now, finings typically, although there are alternatives, typically are an animal product. And so again, if a beer is clarified using findings from an animal, such as a swim bladder from the sturgeon, etc., then again, it can't be classed truly as vegan. And so people that are seeking a vegan-friendly beer are not able to, again. So another reason why we're seeing more hazy beers. Got this tight white head on it as well, which is interesting. So let's move on to the next stage. Give it a swirl and get your nose in there. Wow, much different flavour, much different aroma, isn't it?
Very sort of citrusy.
Yeah, very
Lemony.
Yeah.
Yeah, lemony citrusy.
Yeah, very much so. Sean, what are you getting off your IPA there?
Mine's very, very hoppy. That's the main bit I'm getting from it.
Is it?
So
Yeah.
I'm on a Marston's, the Old Empire IPA from Marston's.
Right, good. Yeah, know it well. So you'll be getting the same here. So on the nose, when we get the aroma from an IPA,
It's quite light.
Yeah, it tends to be light, and we tend to get those fruit sort of flavors. So, again, if you're tasting at home, if you're getting things like grapefruit, lemons, anything citrus, oranges, that's very typical. And that aroma is coming from the hops, and so that's what we're getting a very floral sort of smell and aroma from the hops, and it tends to be the big hops, so things like Cascade and Chinook. And again, these are the big bittering hops which brewers use to really punch some bitterness into there. So even without tasting it now, I know we've tasted this before, we know what style it is, but even through doing that little bit of analysis, we start to think, okay, I'm probably into an IPA here, or maybe a Pilsner that's going to be quite hoppy. So have a good mouthful.
Yeah.
I knew you'd love this one. Fiona, bless her, doesn't share my passion for IPA, and that's not uncommon, to be honest. And I don't want to start a gender war in any ways, and don't like to be stereotypical, but there is, and I'm not an expert on this element, but it's what I've learned, that there is a slight difference in the palate between the male palate and the female palate. The female palate is more sensitive. No surprise there, really. And it's more able to pick up the bitterness elements. And so this beer could well taste more bitter to you than it does to me. And hence why it's acceptable to me, but not to you. But again, I don't want viewers suddenly claiming to be gender stereotypical in any way. I've got some great friends, that girls and ladies who love a really strong IPA. So it's not completely stereotypical, but there is that going on. So let's try it against some food. So try against the cheese. We'll try and speed through this, guys, because this must be very boring. I just want to enjoy beer and food if you're not. Yeah. And taste the beer. That's a pretty good match, isn't it?
That works really well.
Did you get the same shot?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's actually nicer having that with food rather than just having it as a drink.
I think that's a great point to make, and it's the same with many beers and also wine. Some of the very extreme flavors we get from these things, they almost need something to complement it or contrast it to put it back.
It works nicely with it and pairs. It pairs lovely alongside it, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And, I don't know if you've had the joy of going to Belgium, and drinking beers there. We were lucky to be in Bruges, and we went to Bruges, and obviously you're drinking all those beautiful Belgian beers, and they typically give you a little plate of cheese, or on the back bar there they have little cartons of cheese, don't they, that you can buy, just to a bit like the Spanish idea of having a little bit of tapa to just complement. So yeah, good. I noticed someone was asking about the seven brothers. Yeah, this is. Yeah, you can get a great pack here. I love these guys, and they're from Manchester. So again, another northern brew. Yeah, good. This is Good Day IPA that we're drinking, and again, I'm just going to plug it a little bit. We're massively behind Hospitality Action today, as you well know, but also what these guys did, what Seven Brothers did, was they produced this beer in support of the Tim Bacon Foundation. So Tim Bacon, for anybody that's been involved in hospitality industry over the years, was a very fabulous entrepreneur that set up many concepts, including the Living Ventures concept. So his obviously legacy lives on. But yeah, this is from Seven Brothers, and they produce this Good Day IPA. So if you do come across this, it's bloody marvelous, as they might say down in us, and also you'll be doing a good cause to a good foundation there. Anyway, onwards, chorizo. Shall we try it? Go for it. Yeah, I get the kick there. Took a while.
Not as good as the cheese.
No, interesting, that, isn't it? Again, just shows you the best laid plans. So this is why you need to taste. And when we're doing menu tastings and beer matchings, you can kind of look at it on paper and go, okay, well, the red ale will go best with the cheese, and the IPA will go best with the chorizo. But sometimes when you get to taste them, it's completely different. What I found with that one was it took a while for the chorizo flavour to come through, but then it stayed, and the beer didn't quite re-establish itself.
Yeah, I can still feel the spice.
Can you from the chorizo? Yeah. And again, I know this was quite a bitter beer for you, but in terms of IPAs, it's not that bitter. IPAs have kind of been there's craft beer lovers, that really love the IPAs get kind of termed as hotheads. They want it hoppier and hoppier and hoppier. And you get the double IPAs and imperial IPAs that are super, super hoppy. This one's kind of quite moderate, really, but still, so the chorizo didn't quite. So the chorizo overpowered it. Yeah. If it was a stronger IPA, it might have knocked it back. What about chocolate then? Not sure what this is going to do, but
I think the chocolate will always kill it.
I would think so, yeah. I would think so. Yeah, I mean, this is a good quality chocolate. But even so, I'm getting what you can often get with when you sort of match chocolate with beer, and it's kind of this cloying. It's almost like the chocolate sort of covers the tongue, and it's not a pleasant sort of.
But the beer.
Well, you've lost the beer.
Yeah, that beer could be anything for me.
Yeah, I've lost the beer completely.
Yeah,
it could be a can of pop for all I'm concerned there.
I totally agree. Chocolate's completely overpowered it. So.
I still got the bitterness from the beer.
Did you?
Yeah.
So showing your kind of susceptibility that you pick up that hoppiness so much. So yeah, Yeah, I could have been drinking anything on that second taste because the chocolate's completely overpowered it. So there we go. That's IPA, good old IPA. So best match there, Phil. What would you?
Probably the cheese.
So
Yeah, definitely cheese.
Yeah. And it was chewy with the red ale. So that was what I probably expected. Let's see what we get now. We're having a bit of fun with this one. Guys, this brewery isn't sort of represented today in the festival, but they're worth looking out for. If I can tilt that the right way around. Brewery called Tiny Rebel. They're a Welsh brewery. They're over in Cardiff. Tremendous beers. They're often up there in the sort of world champion beers category. They've got a great ale called Kutch, which is lovely. But they also do these kind of slightly wacky beers, and they sort of have a bit of fun with it. So there's one of their beers called Tropical, I think, and it's based upon what they tried to do was create a beer that most tasted like Lilt for some reason, because that was their favourite pop when they were younger. What they've done here is a marshmallow porter. So this is Stay Put. So they've kind of tried to recreate a porter, but with a sort of marshmallow element to it. Marshmallow does go into the brew. That's their core one. This is a kind of trial one where they've gone one step further and added a coconut cream to it. So I've got to be honest, guys, this is the first time I'm tasting this version of it. So I've tasted Stay Puft before, but not this absolute version. What it is at its base is a porter or stout. Now, a lot of people get confused by the two. Do you know what the difference between a porter and a stout is? No. You're like a lot of us, to be honest. And I had to research it and find it out. There's not a huge amount of difference between the two of them. So porter was the original kind of core style, and that was brewed in London. Way back when. It was brewed very much for the porters that used to go down to the ships and take the baggage and all the rest of it and take it into London and to landed gentry, etc. Hence the name porter. And so that was the key beer style that we were drinking in the UK at those days. Now, a strong porter then became renowned as a stout porter, i.e. stout, sort of inferring that it's strong and all the rest of it. So hence kind of these stout and porter. But over the years, the two sort of dragged apart a little bit and sort of became slightly different styles. But ostensibly, they tend to be the same. So let's have a look at what we've got here. I'll just pour mine so I can start talking about it and then get you some. So straight away, what are we seeing? That's giving us what we're seeing straight away. Much darker. So we've got this really dark, and again, I guess most people would probably expect that from porter or stout made really obviously famous by Guinness and the other brews. And these are great beers. There's lots of different stouts you can get. But Guinness by the bottle is a really high quality beer. So, and tends to have a lot more flavour to it than it does when it goes through draft. So if you've had draft Guinness and you didn't like it, please don't give up on the category of stouts, because you will get much more flavour. What tends to happen when we drink draft stout is that to get the beer up and to get that lovely creamy head, the gases tend to suppress some of the flavours in there. So,
funny enough, Martin, I've actually got the bottled Guinness.
So we've got really dark. Hey, there you go. Well, yeah, good for you. It is an absolute classic. And it's stood obviously the test of time. So, and it's very, very different to the draft product. So we've got a real darkness to this, and obviously that's telling us that we've got those dark sort of malts coming through it. At the real top end, imagine these malts. They start off as biscuity in colour, and then they stay in the oven, and they're getting darker and darker and darker. And as they get towards the end, they're getting this kind of as we said before, almost sort of coffee flavour and chocolate flavour. Indeed, there is a malt called chocolate malt. It's got nothing to do with chocolate, but obviously has that connotation of flavour. So we think at this stage we're going to get a malt forward beer. But again, what's interesting with these dark beers is that the darker the malt, the higher the level of the sugar that will come out of it, because it's really concentrated. You know, the flavors are really concentrated down. And so as that comes out into the beer, you would expect it to be a very malt forward beer. To balance the beer, of course, what would the brewer do to balance a really sweet beer? Put the hops in. So it puts loads of hops into it. So bizarrely, you can have these stouts, which are actually don't taste that bitter, but have a high level of bitterness or hop level in them. Right. So let's have a smell of it. What do you get on the nose?
Coffee.
Coffee. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Coffee.
Coffee.
And this,
Someone's just said, Martin, then,
yes,
what if you don't like chocolate?
Okay, if you don't like chocolate. I mean, with this style, I mean, I would still persevere with it because the chocolate notes on it are quite light, really. So give it a go, and certainly some of the lighter porters won't have those chocolate notes with it. So the big sort of imperial stouts and imperial porters probably are going to have that sort of chocolatey flavour with it. But some of them, as this one may well prove to taste, I think it's probably going to have more of a level of coffee with it. If you don't like coffee or chocolate, it's probably going to be difficult to enjoy this style. Let's have a taste. Wow, this is weird, guys. So again, this will taste a million miles away from Guinness that you've got, Sean, and viewers watching in. Not sure what stouts or porters you've got. What? Go on, tell me about the flavour.
It tastes like a really sort of creamy coffee.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Almost like an iced coffee. You know, like where it's got ice cream.
Yeah. This is a great beer, guys. You've got to go out and buy this one. Tiny Rebel, Stay Puft. It does exactly that, doesn't it? It's got a lovely mouthfeel with them. Mouthfeel isn't something we've talked through on beer, but again, today. But again, that's an important part of it. And the mouthfeel comes from the carbonation. So again, it's a really delicate skill of the brewer to get the right level of the carbonation. Carbonation comes from the brewing process, the the yeast turning the sugars into alcohol and CO2. And if the carbonation is really good in a beer like this, then it just foams up in the mouth and it kind of spreads that lovely flavour all around the place. But this is really interesting. So and it's quite a sweet beer, isn't it? This one.
Yeah.
So this is very sweet, guys. What you might be getting with your stouts is more of a chocolate, more of a bitterness coming through. As we said, this category, this style of beer is quite a bitter category. So it does have a high level of hop and bitterness in there. So you might be getting bitterness. You might be getting that burnt bitterness that you get from sort of burnt coffee beans kind of flavour, or those chocolate beans as well. But we've got this real sweetness here. So let's try it with the food. Try it with the food first. See what you think. So trying it with cheese now, folks. Wow. What do you think?
That goes really well.
It goes really well. It goes really well.
I wasn't expecting that.
Whoever said cheese matches perfectly with wine got it completely wrong. Sorry, Mark, he's not here to defend himself. But in terms of cheese, there's only one match for me, and that's beer. I think all three beers have gone reasonably well. Certainly two have gone brilliantly with it. two that gone well with it. Which was the other one that went well with it? It was the IPA, wasn't it? So again, it shows the contrast. So the IPA is bitter. This is very sweet, but it's still matching it. So it's doing different things, really. But yeah, that's good. That's just a great match, isn't it?
Really good.
Yeah. And again, you know, if ever you're confused about, how to match food and beer, just think about the gastronomy of the country or the place that we're in, and you think about quintessential England, say with cheese. We're a great cheese lover, aren't we? Particularly the cheddar cheese and the farmhouse cheeses that we're trying here. And so you think about the gastronomy of that, and you think about automatically. I would think about the ploughmans and that sort of dish. And again, ploughmans, and you think, what would people years and years and years ago have been drinking with that? And in the UK, they would have been drinking a type of beer. They would have made their own beer. It probably would have been a bit of a sour beer by nature of the way they brewed it, but they'd have been drinking beer rather than wine. So yeah, that's a great match. What about the chorizo? What do we think? Comes through well there, doesn't it? Still getting the spice.
Use the beer a little bit.
Yeah, you do. And I'm still getting the chorizo now. So the chorizo there, the spiciness, even though we've got a very sweet beer, which you might imagine that the contrast matched up well, it's just colliding a little bit, isn't it? It's not sort of got that velvety, lovely connection that you might hope for. Now, what about the chocolate? I've enjoyed this so much. I've drunk my sample here.
Okay.
You think so? Yeah, I think you do. Yeah, I felt the same. And I think it still complements it quite well. So it doesn't put up against each other, but I think our chocolate is just so powerful.
Yeah.
So what we might have needed today to really match the chocolate was probably a higher ABV, so higher alcohol. So again, alcohol plays a strong part in matching with food. And I think we've struggled with the chocolate because all these beers are around sort of between 4 and 5.2. So maybe what we needed here, instead of our steak buff, which is very sweet, is to play the other access, which is to go with the ABV and go maybe with an imperial. Mark, Sean, what stout did you pair up there?
I've got the Guinness.
You've got the Guinness, of course you have. Sorry, how did that match in with the chocolate?
It's not killed it. You can sort of taste both at the same time though, because the chocolate's still coating them out.
Right. Okay. So it sounds like you're not, one isn't overpowering the other, which is good news.
Yeah.
And again, of course, it can depend what chocolate you've got, isn't it? And we've got, as we said before, quite high grade, high level of cocoa in there. So,
my one, Martin's a 75% chocolate cocoa. So it is still quite.
That's pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty serious chocolate, that, isn't it? So,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, favourite beer?
Probably this one.
Probably this one. Steak. Yeah. And best food match?
Probably cheese.
With
this
one.
And with the IPA.
Yeah,
because I didn't mind the IPA with the cheese, even though I don't like
IPA. It sort of brought the beer into a realm of enjoying being able to enjoy it. So it's not a beer. And I've got to admit myself, I don't actually drink a lot of pints of beer when I go out and things like that. With an IPA, 1 pint it's quite sort of cool even because you're just getting that bitterness after bitterness and nothing to reset your palate. And so I think if you are eating with beers and strong IPAs like that, it does make such a difference. And Mark, Sean, how did you get on? What was your favourite match?
I'm going to say probably the IPA was my favourite, but with the cheese.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. And I don't know how many people have been sort of playing along, tasting along at home, but is there an ability, Sean, just to run a poll on favourite match?
Yeah, we can run a poll on the Facebook page for the beer tasting. Yeah, definitely. We'll get sorted up shortly.
Okay, fantastic. And so that brings us to the end. We're just tasting 3 beers today. I will just, whilst I've got a chance, just give a plug out to obviously some of the beer producers that are supporting the festival, and thank you to their support. So we've got Beer Box, and who beer online. You can go and buy beer online from them. We've got Walled Top, who are a brewery really interesting. Go and have a look at their story. Farm-based brewery, creating great cask beers. God, how I'm missing cask beer. I mean, beer isn't something during lockdown we've been short of. I mean, you can get so much of it, but what you can't get is cask beer, and that's my favourite style, really. So I'm really missing getting to the pub and drinking cask beer. But also Carlisle Brewing Company is supporting, and Crankshaft as well, and as well as Seven Brothers, as we talked about before. Now, obviously, I'm a big advocate for the beer industry, and yes, the supermarkets to an extent can supply some reasonable beers. What you tend to find is you'll always get the same beers coming through. What I'm a big advocate of, and would ask for others to support, is go and find your local brewers. The local brewers, and in the north we've got so many of them. Most of them are doing home delivery, posting out beers. You can buy them online, you can post them out. Most of them, in terms of the postage, is really low or free over a certain amount, and you just get such more variety and flavour than you do some of the homogenized brands. So that's my little political bit at the end there. So happy to take any questions if there's any questions, Sean.
Just checking now. We've more got people saying like the favourite style of beer is the IPA.
Okay.
Who thought of it? Of pairing beer with, because it's quite different and unusual.
Yeah, it's been a modern version of an age-old phenomenon, if that makes any sense at all. Because if you look at the gastronomy of a place, it often is rooted back to the core food of that place, and the beer, because beer in sort of early times, particularly in Europe, was and particularly the colder regions of Europe, was more prevalent than a lot of the wine. And so, but I mean, wine is a fantastic match on food, and Mark will be smiling as he watches, I'm sure. But I am still a big advocate of wine and food. And we could have produced some fantastic wines here to go with these 3 foods as well, and that's the beauty of it. And I think wine tended to dominate gastronomy with food for quite a long time, probably because of the French influence on food, and obviously French cuisine being fairly dominant, core style. So pulling along their national drink, if you like, wine. The French are massive on beers. Apart from some of their farmhouse and saisons are amazing. And so I guess that was what got wine paired. But in the last sort of 5 to 10 years, people are realizing that beer plays a big part. And I think it's played in a number of ways, in so much that, as I said earlier, because our range of diet is expanding, particularly with spiciness coming into play, that maybe matches up with beer more. But also, remember, of course, a really strong beer is probably something around 7%. Okay, an average wine is probably around about 12%. Typically, as both a nation and a world population, we're drinking less alcohol, we're seeking less alcohol as our diet tends to improve and become healthier. So as a lower, not a low, but as a lower alcohol source, beer plays that part. So I'm wondering, in terms of who thought of it, it's that collection of trends really, I think, that's come through. Hope that answers that one. I'm getting rude faces from Mark Jeffries, I think. Oh no, it looks like applause. Oh, is that a clap? Oh, that's good.
Yeah, he's waving over at you, Mark. Yeah, it's all good.
Fabulous. Any more questions we can help with?
Just quickly check. No, I think that's everyone, to be fair, Martin. That's lovely. It's been a great little session. I'm just going to finish off the live video now. I'll finish it off with a little piece on hospitality action before we go. That's lovely. Thanks very much for everyone to join us. See you all soon.
Ollie Hoyle, Catering Manager.
Peter Molar, doorman.
Ricardo Oliva, Concierge.
Ulrich Edwards, Concierge Assistant.
We've got you.
Linda Anderson, cafe owner.
Ioana Gheorghiu, Junior sous chef.
Nuno Pinto, Bartender.
Mark Black, Head Porter.
Andrea Demir, Receptionist.
We've got you.
Aaron Dixon, Apprentice Chef.
Federica Pinna, Pastry Chef.
Sabino Mazzone, Pastry Chef.
Himari Bochke, Barista Supervisor.
We've got you. Sean Maharjan, Sushi Head Chef.
Mitchell Collier, Duty Manager.
Anna Grabczewska, Publicaria Cleaner.
Whatever you do in hospitality, isn't it good to know that someone's got your back in case anything goes wrong?